Yeah.
So, good morning, everybody. I am thrilled to be here this morning. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And I'm just so grateful that you guys are here. Let me caveat all of that. So, my least favorite Sunday of the year is the Avocado Festival for obvious reasons. And generally what I have done over the years is I have gotten a guest speaker for this particular Sunday and gotten out of town. Yeah, Jim has been it before, and I usually bat myself out of town. However, and I even had a speaking gig at another center, and my friend called me, and one thing led to another. He asked me if I'd be there next week instead of this week. I said sure, so I made all that arrangement. And here I am. And then earlier this week, I found out the practitioner who was supposed to be here is sick, and they can't make it on. And then I got a text this morning at about 8:15 from Lee, who is sick, and he couldn't show up. So I texted Paul, and Paul's like, I'm in. So, yeah. So all of that external stuff on the outside just was rocking and rolling. And, you know, when you smell God, you just kind of say, all right, man. And the practitioner stepped in. Yeah, I'm going to get to that part in a second too. So I might as well just get as swirly as I can today because we're so intimate and small. So generally what your ordained New Thought minister does is he's preparing for talks, as he looks at the chart of the day, and sometimes I may or may not even pull a tarot card. And I kept pulling the same one like 3 times, the Chariot. So it's all about the Chariot today, and I'll get into that. Anyway, so swirly as it is, what I also suspect is just knowing these incredible solar storms, which are blowing plasma out, and it's bound to affect us. Just knowing how rocky it has been out there. I'm guessing all of you probably have had a week for the books too. And so I'm just glad that you're here. I also want to acknowledge that today is Karen Baker's birthday, and she is... So let me put this in context. Today is also the celebration of the founding of the city of Rome. Almost 3,000 years as an existing city it has stood. So Karen isn't quite that old.
She's a Taurus.
Huh? She's a 88. Yeah, she's 88 years old today. Is that amazing? Is that amazing? We should, yeah. Happy birthday to her.
All right.
So we will sing at the end of service to celebrate that. Anyway, so she's here with that, and
she's a Taurus.
She's a Taurus, man. Taurus. Yeah, Taurus. Yeah, you're one or the other.
There's no cross.
How am I going to do this today? Like a pro, he's going to show. So, couple of announcements. One is Karen's birthday. The other announcements is I'm getting ready to do a class on spiritual practices. More information for that to come out. It will be, I'm probably going to just do it at the center. I'm not sure if I'll do it Zoom or not. I might do it Zoom or not. But I'm doing spiritual practices. That's coming up.
Meditation.
Paul's got his meditation on Wednesday afternoons at 12:30. Nice little group is there. And then Jim's got some really exciting news about his event that's coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so we've talked about in a couple of weeks, May 2nd and 3rd, we have an event out at Palma Valley Country Club. And we have a world-class theoretical physicist that's coming out, Lawrence Krauss. We're very excited about that. And we just had a donor actually purchase several tickets so we can have some people come as guests. So if any of you are interested in being able to come to that, please come see me after service. We need to get that signed up sooner than later. But it's a great way to get a $400 ticket for free. Lots of great food. It does not include housing, but it gives you everything else. So please see me afterwards if you're interested.
I'll take one of those tickets.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this thing because I know you're all excited to get down there and play at the Avocado Festival, which I'm not. So Andrea has graciously agreed to do our invocation, and I'm going to do the reading. So I'll let her start with the invocation.
Okay, sounds good. So welcome again. It's always, we just enjoy each other so much, don't we? Come in and everyone's so happy to see each other. We're hugging and because that's great. You know, we're just small. Not really. We're mighty. We're individual. We're creative. We're flow. We're divine. We're just about everything you can think of, all mixed up into one beautiful being. You, all of us.
All of us.
So all of us. So for all of us and all that is going on and all that is present here and now. So I offer this divine invocation to that one that is the divine beloved. Your heart, nature, goodness itself, love covers everything. So I offer this invocation, this prayer to that one heart, that one beauty, that one soul that resides and sits within each and every one of us. I am, we are that one. Let it be known to us in ways that will surprise and awaken us. Let it be known to us in ways that we mirror that for each other. Just let it be known to us that I am, that we are one with the divine, that love, that great, great being. And so how grateful I am to be here, to offer these words, to be present in this moment, literally as a vehicle, through the power of the word, through the love of the heart, to speak this, as Reverend Guy does in his talks, as Paul and Jim are leading us in music, as each and every one of us. I offer to acknowledge our divinity and our beauty and our grace and how we always show up. And so in that consciousness, the prayer is evoked. It comes forth through this place of divine beingness. And so the words and the sense of flowers, and all that is there. So I offer this in gratitude and humbleness and in love, that the service is a blessing as we are blessed by and with each other, and knowing that that flow of light fills and lifts us as within each and every one of us. So knowing this is so, I say, and so it is.
So it is.
So I'd like to share with you a reading from one of my favorite authors, which is Hermann Hesse. Hermann Hesse was an amazing novelist. He's part of that generation after the First World War. There was a sense of going into that war that both sides were so convinced they were right that they were willing to sacrifice everything. And an entire generation of people were lost. And as a result of that, there was a deep existential searching that grew out of that. And Hermann Hesse was one of those guys. But he writes this. He says, our mind is capable of passing beyond the dividing line we have drawn for it, beyond the pairs of opposites which the world consists, other new sights begin. Let me just offer that again. Our mind is capable of passing beyond the dividing line we have drawn for it. In other words, the parameters that we've set for ourselves, our life is so much bigger than that. And beyond the pairs of opposites of which this world consists, other new sights begin. So it is said that the first language of God is silence. So let us enter into that time of silence. So I invite you, as we prepare for this, to quietly to yourself repeat these words after me. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. The Sufi mystic and poet Rumi says that in the practice of this, something to the effect of that, in the practice of the silence, we hear that inner voice that says, be more silent. So may that yearning within us for that deeper experience carry itself throughout this day. May we find the balance of the light and the dark, the sounds of life and the sounds of silence, which is the beginning of all there is. And so we bless this time in gratefulness, letting it be, and so it is.
You are the light. Shines right down to your soul. We are the light. Sometimes you just gotta let it go. We are the light. That light shines to the soul. You are the light. Sometimes you just gotta feel it. Sometimes you just gotta see it. Listen to it is a light of the soul. Listen to the heartbeat. It speaks forgiveness. It's one to love. You are the light. Sometimes you just gotta let it go. We are the light. Sometimes you feel it in your soul. Listen to the river, it speaks forgiveness. It is a light in the heart. Listen to the heartbeat, it is oneness. It is who you are. You are the light. You are the light. We are the light. You are the light, yeah. You are the light, yeah. You are the light. Oh, even in the night, yeah. You are the light, yeah. You are the light.
Guys, it was lovely, and the beauty of it is the spontaneity of this community. You know, I always talk about this idea of agility being probably one of the greatest faculties that we can have, and in that right, I want to kind of start my talk today by something that Tolkien says. So Tolkien wrote this wonderful essay on the imagination and living in the imaginal world. And one of the things that he talks about is he talks about reading literature. And he said, particularly literature, in the world that he would call fairy, or the imagination, or imaginative literature. But he says that when we read literature, it offers us three things. It offers us recovery, escape, and consolation. Recovery in the sense that we can kind of get a bearing on things. And, you know, there's that sense of, like, the I Ching talks about a tactical retreat, where we can kind of sometimes regenerate our imagination, or we just regenerate ourselves, because I don't know about you, but I know for myself, and this was a week like it, where there's so many things that are happening on the nonfiction world that sometimes entering into fiction gives the space to kind of recover and find. And he says it's also escape. And escape is a word that's kind of, we don't like that word so much in our culture because it kind of sounds like we're shirking. But he says it like this. He said, would any of us fault a prisoner who, if they were given the opportunity to escape, would? Well, of course not. And sometimes we can, and again, I'm speaking for myself, maybe it's true for you, but sometimes we find ourselves sort of trapped into something, right? Almost like a prisoner of circumstances that are kind of going on, that are out there. And sometimes we just need to step out of it as an escape. And consolation, consolation is that sense that empowers us. And C.K. Chesterton says this really interesting thing. He says, we read fairy tales not because we believe in dragons, but because we know that dragons can be defeated. And working into the metaphor. So that sets the stage for Guy's life this week, where I found myself like Thursday just wobbling. And so I went to my drug of choice, which is a good novel, and I was in the mood for something somewhat dystopian. And one of my favorite authors, who writes a lot of nonfiction, actually is a great occultist. Anyway, he wrote this novel that I read like 400 pages in 2 days. I just lived it. And one of the things about it that I just found really interesting, that I've been just sitting with, is a concept that he comes up with, because I won't get into the whole plot or the whole story or any of those kind of things, but just that the story takes place that a first world country, which is a world power, loses. And how quickly the whole system falls apart. And part of the reason why the foes of this particular world power were able to capitalize on that is because the world power had no concept of what it was like to be weak or to lose. And so therefore, there was no contingencies in its planning for anything other than it winning, and just that's how it was. And what it was is that level of certainty can become such a liability. And then I started thinking about that, how true that is into so many things, that when we live at a level of certainty, we don't even entertain the possibility of novelty or change, that we may be wrong, or it may be bigger than what it is. And I think in many ways, that's kind of the world that we're living in. And part of that comes from this whole concept that was developed during the Enlightenment, which I love, the Enlightenment, and Rene Descartes, who was a pretty okay guy, and even oh God, I'm spacing his name right now. The guy that talked about Newton, Isaac Newton, yeah. So they wrote this whole concept of developing a model of how we perceive the universe, like a giant machine, like a clockwork, and that there were immutable laws that we can kind of predict and know. And our whole physics is kind of based on this system. And our whole theology, philosophy kind of anchors out, which is why something like the First and Second World War happened, because there was such a level of certainty about how certain things are supposed to be, and philosophically how things are, and more importantly, how there was a separation from spirit and matter. Matter was the realm of the scientists, spirit was the realm of the clerics, and never the two shall meet. And the way that kind of the philosophers that grew out of the Enlightenment were, is that we live in a material universe, and mind or consciousness is not material, and so therefore we just kind of don't deal with it. Except what we're finding is that there is no separation between spirit and matter, because what we're beginning to understand more and more, especially when we look at the work of Max Planck or Heisenberg or the development of quantum physics, is that everything is energy, and that matter is created from energy. I thought I had a quote here. Apparently not. Yeah. So Joe Dispenza says it this way. He says that energy is the very fabric of matter, and it is subject to mind. In other words, if we entertain this thought that everything at the end of the day is energy, and that we live in an energy field, that matter itself grows out of energy. And to me, these are some really interesting and fun meditations, just to kind of sit with this idea, and this is the beauty of doing something like watching the stars at night, or being quiet on a beach, or just unplugging to the point where we realize, yeah, it's all this energetic field that we live in, and that matter itself, creation itself, grows out of energy, because matter is just energy at a slower pace. And the next way to connect that is that mind, consciousness, affects matter, energy. So whether that be, whatever thought that we have about how we move and live in the world that we're in. Again, Joe Dispenza says this. He says, think about it. No, he says, your past shortfalls can be traced at their root to one major oversight. You haven't committed yourself to living by the truth that your thoughts have consequences so great they create your reality. So I'm going to invite you quietly to yourself just to repeat these words as a mantra to yourself, and say this: my thoughts have consequences. My thoughts have consequences so great they create my reality. My thoughts have consequences so great that they create my reality. Now, I'm not asking you guys to intone it after me, because that sometimes I have this religion creep factor, where when people start intoning things, it sort of reminds me, it's like, when is the sacrifice coming in? But just ponder that for yourself, that my thoughts have consequences so great that they create my own reality. And that we're living in a universe where this is simultaneously happening anywhere and everywhere. So I picked up this book the other day at the request of a friend, and it's just it's one of those really light books that's so heavy. It's called The Dalai Lama's Cat. Does anybody know this book? So it's a great introduction into Tibetan Buddhism, and it's a series of books. And it's written from the perspective of the Dalai Lama having a cat. And one of the stories at the very beginning of one of the things is that the Dalai Lama is talking to a professor who's there, and he sees the cat, and he says, you and this cat have one thing in common. And the professor's like, what could that be? And he says that both of you believe that you are the most important being in the world to you. Yeah. And again, that's something to just kind of repeat, in this world that I live in, I am the most important being that I'm aware of in this world. And that energy creates matter. Energy is the foundation of matter. Energy is influenced by mind. Mind expresses itself in consciousness, and that everything is conscious. So there was an article in the Washington Post this week. I don't know if anybody else saw it. It was a whole thing on, the question was, I didn't read the article because I knew the answer, I guess, and I wanted to get back to my book. But it was, do insects have consciousness? Because, there's this big circadian thing that's going on in the East. Well, of course they do. Of course they do. Now, does that mean that can insects, do advanced trigonometry? Probably not, nor do they going to converse about Heidegger or anything like that. But to the degree that they have an awareness of their beingness. And what Plato says is that every sentient being or every conscious thing is seeking its good. So we are seeking our good, and the cat is seeking its good, and the mouse that the cat is pursuing is seeking its good, and on and on and on, that everything is seeking its good. And the illusion that we live under is that everyone is separate from everyone else, or that everything is separate from everything else. And so how do we begin to work with this idea that everything is seeking its good, and to the degree that it is, whether it be a blade of grass or a gopher under the grass, or a dog that's chasing the gopher, or me chasing the dog, it's all seeking its good at some level or another, and that there's an underwriting principle behind all of this. And, I use the word God, but I use the word God more as a dynamic, as a way of understanding this ground of being, because I would never be so what's the word I'm looking for? Proud, certain that I have an answer to what God means to you, or that I even have an answer to what God is, other than what I understand God to be, which is the ground of being, which is this presence of unrelenting love, which is by its own very nature then creating always and making things new always, and that there's an intelligence in this, and that nothing is separate from it, and that it can become so personal to each of us when we enter into the silence to experience it. I guess at that level, the true sense of Gnosticism is this, that it comes down to our own experience of that illumination. And often what holds us back from that is that we're thinking we have to do it some other way or follow some other thing. But the reality is, at the end of the day, when we're silent, we know. We know. And it's okay for us to trust that level of intuition of what that is. Pierre Teilhard talked about it in an interesting way, because he said, the more conscious we become of the divine within us, the more conscious we become of the divine around us. The more we can appreciate that presence within us, the more we are able to perceive that presence around us. And again, Joe Dispenza says it this way. He says, think about it. if you really knew that that principle were true, would you ever miss a day in intentionally creating your desired destiny? If you really knew that mind creates, would you miss an opportunity to be creating? And if we really knew that that loving presence is within us, how could we miss that loving presence around us? And then how do we begin to live in such a way that we organize ourselves around that? So that leads me to something that I have been struggling with that I want to share with you. And that is, there's a whole groundwork that's happening in the world of nerds that I live in, which is, how do we speak to the condition of the world? Because God forbid we should alienate anybody, right? And God forbid we should step on anybody's toes because of one reason or another. They stop contributing to the centers, and so we sit with this, and yet it's important for us to do this. I sit with this quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer that haunts me. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a German theologian who, really interesting guy. He was a German theologian who, during the rise of fascism, came to New York and really got into jazz and into the culture of Harlem. But realized that in order for him to speak how he needed to speak about what was happening in his native Germany and be part of the reconstruction after that war, he needed to go back to Germany, where he was arrested and a week before the liberation was killed. But he wrote this. He says, silence in the face of evil is evil itself. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. But as the great poet Frank Zappa said, politics are the how do you say it? Politics are the comedic side of the whole thing. And so to get into the level of this side and that side is playing into the separation, and it's boring and it's pointless and it's useless because nothing ever changes at that realm. And so to me then, frankly, I couldn't care less whether you were a conservative or a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal. I really honestly couldn't care less, because it's not the truth of who we are. Not like it's false. It's just who we are is much more than that. We are a soul. We are a soul that is seeking happiness, each and every one of us. And if we get stuck there, then we miss the point of why we're here. And the point is not to have one side win and one side lose. The point is not who's right and who's wrong, and to get into these crazy, in my opinion, crazy conversations that, we're on the verge of an existential crisis and the world as we know it today is in danger. And if this side gets in, there'll be fluoride in the water and communists in the streets and God knows what else is going to happen. That's boring. It's boring. And it's not even true, because real change doesn't even happen at that level. And there's so much more about who we are. And what I am amazed at, what I find exciting is if we can step out of preconceived preconceived ideas that we have been fed, what then becomes possible? Something that I'm sitting with more and more is, I remember during the pandemic when the whole thing closed down. I talked about this last week, and the whole world closed down, and all of a sudden there were whales where there weren't supposed to be whales, and rivers were cleaning up, and the sky was green. And what it said to me is, there is a force that is much more innovative than us, that given an opportunity to express itself, will. And it is true with us. When we stop trying to think about how we have to force ourselves to do this or to do this or follow this prescription or do that certain thing or eat that kind of food or whatever that kind of stuff, and just be silent and listen to the inner voice within us, it will guide us. It will guide us. It will take care of us. And again, recovery, escape, consolation. I often go to Tolkien. And I thought about that, and I jotted down these things that I have learned from Tolkien, which to me are guiding principles that we should remind ourselves every day as we slip into that infinite sea of possibilities that Ernest Holmes talks about. And it is this: if we practice this, all will be well, all is well, in every manner of things, all will be well. It is this: you are loved. Life is short. The world is broken. Keep showing up. Keep choosing love. Keep giving grace to others and yourself. You are loved. Life is short. The world is broken. Just keep showing up. Keep choosing love. Keep giving grace to others and yourself. And that's it. And that's it.
What we hear, all the things that I feel. What we know, all the things that we are. That lifts me up every day. All that I feel is what we say. Oh, tell me now, have a little love for you. I know it's true. Oh, tell me now, have a little love for me. Hey, 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 hey. What we do, it's all that is true. nothing but this time. And this love that we share is everywhere. Yeah. What would you do, yeah, if I sang at a tune, yeah? Oh, tell me now, all I see is love. Yeah, all about this one. Well, so love of God is right here, right now. Right here, right now, yeah. Oh, have a little love for my friend. Oh, have a little heart for the one. Oh, have a little love for you and me. Yeah, what we see. Yeah. What we breathe, yeah. Oh, who you are is the love. Oh, yeah.
You guys are actually quite good together.
Yeah, I'll
It's
say.
quite a nice, yes. Oh, and there's Liz.
Yeah, we're doing a little changing things up a little bit. But thank you, Paul and Jim and Reverend Guy, those wonderful words. This is our time for conscious giving. And it's one of my favorites because it allows me to also express my love for Hilltop, my love for my spiritual community, which is all of you out there and here. And it gives me tools, truly, to open my heart for the week ahead, to be able to handle the ups and downs of life as well as a little bit better, and to heed the words of Reverend Guy, when love is all there is. And that, to me, is why we're here and what keeps us moving forward with joy. So if you choose to give today, consider it an investment for your soul. I kind of look at it that way, as an energy exchange. So if you choose to give, hold your gift to your heart and say thank you. Thank you, Hilltop. Thank you, Reverend Guy. Thank you for the music. Thank you for all of us sharing in community together. That makes my heart sing. And so it is.
So it is. Voila. Sorry. Thank you so much for showing up today. I really appreciate it. I mean, it was like, yeah. Just a text away. It just worked out beautifully. Yeah, thank you. And thank you guys all for being here. And especially anybody that showed up for service. I got here this morning at 8:30, and by the time I got here, Jim had already set up tables and had coffee brewing. And Jeff and Mike helped. Yeah, they did. Well, I didn't see. Well, no, Jeff was here. Mike showed up, and of course, when Mike shows up, and more importantly, when Ann shows up, we know that wonderful things are going to be there for us. And so, thank you, Mike and Ann and Steve. Thank you for showing up and just magically doing your thing. And for the greeters today, who were the greeters today? Chris, fabulous, and Dave, wonderful. Dave, good to see you. So, and anybody else that served today, if I haven't mentioned you, I'm Kurt, of course, Kurt. Yeah. Kurt. Yes. Yeah. So, Our dog Rolo was restless last night, so I don't think I slept. I was just, you've ever had those nights where you're just sort of floating on the surface because he was like, I want to go outside. Yeah, I think I want to go inside. No, I really want to go outside. I think I'll bark. You know, so it was that kind of a night. So hopefully this afternoon is not that. And you get to go to the Avocado Festival. Who? You do. We do. Oh, I'm going to sing. We're going to get there. I haven't forgot yet. Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm thanking everybody and got everything going on. And then I want to mention prayer. There's prayer. You can talk to one of the practitioners. Liz is here. Andrea's here. Paul is here. Kurt is here. I don't see any of the other practitioners, but they'll pray with you if you ask them, or you can fill out a request and put it in the narthex, and they'll do that. So there's ways to pray, and we pray every week. So that's something to do. And now we're going to sing Happy Birthday to Karen. Can you do it, Paul, or are we just going to?
I think we should all just do it a cappella.
Okay. It's a nice way of saying no. So
it's super easy. I know Frank can probably just shout them out. And
but I can sing it.
Where's
I'm
Frank
half
from?
Italian. I'm more than half. I'm 3/4. Oh, I'll do it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Karen. Happy birthday to you. All right, let's pray. Let's pray and yes. Thank you for your patience with me. Something's like, huh? Thank you, and I love you all too. And you, Rolo. So in this moment, we just open our hearts in gratitude. Despite the fact that we live in this wonderful, messy, unfinished, imperfect world, there is an opportunity for each and every one of us to give and receive love. And for that, we are grateful. And may each one of us find a moment today of silence. And may that silence bring us to a place of amazement and wonder and awe, and to encounter the divine in such a way that we recognize its remarkable handiwork in our life and in the life of the world. May we respond with a level of reverence and find a way, each and every one of us, in our own way, to be in service. And I bless this day in that consciousness, giving thanks, letting it be, and so it is. All right, Paul, take us home.
Yeah, so one quick reminder about the tickets Jim here was talking about. If anyone's interested in that amazing program, hit him up. So.
May 2nd and 3rd.
We let the love wash over us. We let it be. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. We let the love wash over us. We let wash over. We let it be. We let the love wash over us.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, yeah. That was, yeah, yeah. Just